Hi! Today I'm going to be reviewing the Tombow Mono 100 graphite pencils. I'm going to show you how I use these to create this realistic horse-eye drawing. So first let's have a look at the pencils themselves. They come in this nice little slipcase and I'm going to show you up close how they look. So we take them out of their slipcase, they come in this lovely hard plastic shell case, and then if we open them up, here are the lovely pencils. So they do come unsharpened like this, so I haven't used this one yet. These are the ones I've used in the tutorial I'm going to show you in a moment, and there are 2 layers of pencils. So on top we have 6B all the way down to B, and then underneath these pencils here, if we lift this tray, we have the HB all the way down to the 4H. You can see I haven't used these pencils. They do arrive unsharpened, but they do sharpen beautifully. So here is one sharpened already. Here are some of the other tools we're going to use to draw this portrait. So first off we have the Tombow Mono 0 eraser, the Jelly Roll 08 Sakura gel pen, the Faber-Castell putty eraser, and lastly one of these pencil blenders. These are called so many different things, and throughout the video I do refer to this as something different, but it's the same thing. So it's just a pencil blender. They're also called pencil tortillons, paper tortillons, pencil smudge sticks, but yeah, it's just one of these. All of these products will be linked below in the description box. So let's get started. First off, I'm going to go in with a 3B pencil. So this is sort of a medium pencil. So what I like to do with horse eyes when I start is work around the outside first and then go onto the inside. So the outside are the darkest parts. So if I get those darkest values in first, I'll know how dark or how light to go on the inside for those values then. So if we start with the 3B, because I find if we start really light, it's going to be harder to get it really dark. So if we go in with a medium pencil first, and then we'll get it gradually darker. So I'm going to look closely at my reference, and we've got a nice dark outline coming around here first. I'm just going to add that in. And that's as far as I'm going to go, because I'm going to work on this section first and then I'm going to go around to this section. So I like to work in small sections, bit by bit, rather than overwhelming myself and trying to get it all done at once. So I'm going to move on to the here. So I'm just going to start shading down here where the darkest values are and then blend upwards. And I'm not going in with a really hard pressure, because with graphite I still want to build up my layers as well. So what I'm going to do is add a layer of this pencil down. So I'm just shading it up and around. And you can see it's a lot darker down here than it is at the top. So once I've got a little bit of pencil down, I'm going to go in with my blender and just blend that out. And I'm going to put another layer over the top of that. And again, I'm not using a hard pressure because we want to get some detail in this after. So we want to be able to lift some of the pencil off with our erasers. And if we press too hard on the page with our pencils, it's going to be a lot harder to lift off. So I'm just going to blend that as well. And then this harsh line here, I don't want it to be too harsh. I'm just going to blend it into that area a little more. And just soften it by blending. And I'm going to go in with a softer pencil. So the hard pencils are the lighter ones, and then the more you go up in the pencils, so this is a 3B, when we go to a 4B and a 5B, they're the softer pencils, but they are darker. So I'm going to go straight in with the 6B pencil now and just working on those really dark areas there. And again, I'm not using loads of pressure. I want it to build and get darker with layers rather than lots of pressure. So I'm just looking at where the darkest values are and adding those in. And then I'm just going to soften it again with the blender. Now before I go in and add any of the details, I'm just going to work my way upwards and finish off this top section. So I'm just using the pencil stump, the blending stump for now, just to add this layer down, and then we'll darken it up with the pencils then. So I'm going to go in with the 3B. And I'm going to soften that area. And now I'm going to fill in this area at the top. Again, I'm going to use light pressure because we want to be able to go in afterwards with our razors to get some of the eyelash detail coming over there. I'm just going to come down here just a touch with our darkest tone is there. So as you can see as well, when I'm putting the pencil down, I'm not paying too much attention to detail. All I'm trying to do is get some of the graphite onto the page. So then we can go in with our blending stump. And it sort of covers the page for us then. And again, not pressing too hard. Just getting a light layer of that down. I do love how you can be a little more careless, so to speak, with graphite, because it is a lot more forgiving than coloured pencil is. So I'm going to go in with the 6B and just get that a little darker. And go in with my blending stump again and blend that out. Now I'm just going to blend down here. And then I'll go back in with the 6B to darken this area. This sort of helps just put one layer down for us very quickly to then easily work on top of. So back in with the 6B. And now when I'm putting the 6B down, there's a lot of sort of texture in the eye on this area, so I'm going to purposely leave out areas to try and create that skin texture there, so you get all those little highlights. And then go in with the blender again just to soften it all, and I'm just going to add in a little bit of detail again. And then just blend it a touch. And blend all this section. And now a fun little part, so we're going to get our eraser. So I'm going to use the Mono eraser, and I'm just going to very lightly pick out some highlights. So I don't go in with lots of pressure and press down and rub. It's almost like painting. I sort of go over each area very, very lightly until I get it as light as what I want. So there's a little light bit here. So keep just going over the same area very lightly until it's as light as I want it. And you don't need to use hard pressure because you want it to be nice and subtle, just like it is on the reference. And the good thing is if you go too light, you can just put pencil back over again or blend it back out. And I'm just going to use my 3B and just go around those areas. I'm going to use my 6B to darken this crease by here. And you can see in the reference is a little darker than the rest. And then blend again. Okay, now I want to get some of these highlights down here. So I'm just going to go in with a mono eraser again. And then to enhance those highlights, I'm going to go in with a 3B and just go around them. Just like that. And I'm going to work up here and sort of blend and tidy up this area. There you go. Now we're going to work on this bottom line here before we go and move on to the inside of the eye. And go back to my 3B. Now I'm going to follow this line down. I'm going to go in with a harder pencil. I'm going to go in with my 2B. So I'm just looking at the darkest areas now and I'm just putting them in still. And leaving out these highlights here. So now on this one here, we've got that sort of highlight coming along. So I'm going to go in with a very light pencil. I'm going to go in with my HB and I'm just going to very lightly start adding a bit in there and leaving out areas for those little highlights that you can see in that waterline. Now when I'm working this early on, I sort of just like to map in areas and map in details, and then at the end, or sort of mid towards the end, I'll go in and sort of perfect all the little details. So I'm just going to continue this line down. It's almost like a puzzle, sort of figuring out where all the pieces go. And there's so many little areas in this eye. It is quite tricky to keep track of all the different parts. Okay, now I'm going to stick with this half B pencil and I'm just going to shade this area. And I'm still using that circular motion and it purposely leaving some of that paper coming through as the texture of the eye. And I'm going to go in with the blender and just blend that. I'm going to use this blender really light to just get these lighter areas in. And then we're going to use an eraser because it's sort of blended it a touch too dark, but I just want to get some in, and that's going to be how we create the texture. So I'm going to use this eraser and just add in some lighter areas. And just sort of dabbing the eraser on to give that texture. You could also use the putty eraser for this as well, which I might do in a moment. I'm going to go back in with my half B again and just sort of go around and add in all these little textures. You can hold the squeaking. There's a tractor that keeps going up and down the road by me, and I think it needs to like oil its like trailer part. It's so squeaky. I'm going to slowly build up the tone now by adding in some of this half bead just to sort of map out where the darker areas are. So I'm just leaving out sort of these little wiggly shapes for the highlights. And now I'm going to go in with the 3 bead just to get in this darker area here. I'm just going to blend it. Okay, I'm going to leave it like that for now, and then we're going to go in the inside, because I got a feeling if I add in too many details here around the darker parts, when I'm going in here it's going to sort of smudge these areas, and I'm going to have to go in and sort of tidy them up again. So I'm not going to do too much detail around the eye yet. I just wanted to get my the values in, so I know what my values are going to be on the inside. So I'm wondering whether to start with the eye or the pupil. I think we'll go with the pupil first, because then that'll help us figure out the tones around the eye then. So I'm going to use the 3B, and there is a darker area around here where there's sort of like a reflection and a shadow on this side. So I'm just going to add this here. Again, I'm looking at my values and where the darkest areas are, because this pupil isn't just one tone, there's lots of different tones in there. I think it needs to be a touch darker, so I'm going to go in with my 6B just to get in those really dark tones. I'm going to blend it out with the 3B first before blending with the pencil blender. Go, and then in with the pencil blender. Okay, now what I love with the pencil blender is we can now use this to cover some of those mid-tones. So we don't need to use our pencils. I'm literally just going to use the pencil blender to sort of shade in all these mid-tones. And it gives you sort of a nice smooth covering pretty quickly. So I've managed there to get a lot of coverage down. Just going to go over again, especially in some of the darker toned areas, and then we'll go in with our pencils. And I've left out the areas where there are more detail because I didn't want to blend over them and lose my markings there. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with the B pencil first. And I'm just going to start lightly adding in some of the darker tones. And I'm also looking at the shapes that are created in there as well. And then use my blender to blend that layer. And I'm going to darken again with another layer. So you can see I'm not using hard pressure either to get the dark parts. I'm just using more layers on top and gradually building up the tones. Now I'm going to start working down here. I'm going to go in with a 2B pencil. Now I'm going to erase these graphite lines here because I'm going to work on that area. So this is where it's sort of a little bit of reflection and light are coming in. First I'm just going to fill it by blending. Now use my 1/2B pencil to add in some details. Now I'm going to use the 1/2B pencil to keep blending and darkening over this area. I'm just going to work my way from from right to left. Just using the mono eraser to get a little bit of highlight in there. And just enhance that one. Okay, now this area is a little darker. I'm going to go in with the 2B. And I'm going to use my B pencil to shade in the rest of this area. Again, looking at where my darkest areas are and using more layers on the darker areas than the lighter areas. Now I'm going to go back with 2B and I think I'm going to start adding in these reflection details. So if you look closely you can see that the details here are trees and this is the edge of the field, and then another sort of branch of tree is coming along here. So I'm just going to work on those details now. So what I'm going to do is remove the graphite lines that I've sketched in. I'm just going to work on this little section first and then we'll move over to this section. And I'm going to use my 1/2B pencil first to sketch them out. And then I'm just going to soften that with the pencil blender. And now I'm going to work on this side. And again, I'm going to remove the graphite lines. So I'm just using the 1/2B pencil very, very lightly, and so just making random swirly shapes for the leaves of that tree in the reflection there. And then there are some dark tones, so I'm going to put them in. And now I'm going to go in with my 2B and I'm just going to darken this area now, because now that I've added in these areas I can see down here needs to be a lot darker. So this is what I mean about putting some tones down, working on other areas and then going back to just keep evaluating your values. Okay, right, before I go on to this area, I just want to work on this lower area here. I'm first going to take the pencil stump and just blend some graphite down, so we can get the bottom of the eye finished. And then I'm going to go in with a 2B and darken this area here. Now this line here needs to be thicker, so I'm just going to thicken that up. And then as it comes further up the eye, it gets very, very thin. So now I'm just adding in, just re-evaluating all my values at the moment and just adding in some of the darker tones that I can see. Now this darker area sort of seamlessly blends into that lighter area, so I'm just going to use my pencil stump to do that. If you can hear some tapping, that's my dog Midna on the windowsill, sort of neighbourhood watching. She loves chilling on the windowsill in front of me when I work. I'm just going to use my mono eraser to add in a little more here, because I think I've done it too dark. And I'm just going to use the eraser to sort of blend it. And I'm just using it to add in some lighter areas. And I'm also going to use the putty eraser, I think. So what I'm going to do is make a little point at the end of the putty eraser, and I'm just going to dab onto the graphite, and you can see it erases it and it gives a lovely texture as well. This really helps to sort of give a little bit more texture to the eye and just boost those tonal values as well then. Now I'm going to go in with the mono eraser and just add in some of these highlights here. And then go back in with my half B pencil. Actually, I'm going to go in with the B pencil and just define those areas. So at the moment I'm just going back and forth and getting my tonal values right on this area. I think I've done this line too dark, so I'm going to go back in with my Tombow Mono and lighten that area. And that is the beauty of graphite, is it's so forgiving. It's very easy to rectify mistakes, unlike colour pencil, which is very permanent. So yeah, I do enjoy working in graphite. I'm just looking at the little highlights at the moment that are catching my eye today, and just adding them in. Here we go. I'm just going to tidy up this bottom line now. We want to get sort of that texture in. It isn't just a straight line sort of all the way around. It's got the texture of where the highlight is like hitting the texture of the waterline. I think for this section I'm going to use one of the much harder pencils to get some really small details in there. So I'm using this H pencil now, and I'm going to use it just to get some of these small light details into this waterline here. I'm just using this H pencil now to get in some more of the texture down this bottom waterline. And I'm going to use my putty rubber to sort of lighten this area, because I think I've done it a touch too dark. There we go, and then go in with the H pencil and just add in some shadows of that sort of bumpy texture that we got there. So I'm just adding sort of like little squiggly shapes. There we go. Now I think I'm just going to add a little more detail around here now. I'm going to go in with my B pencil. And I'm just going to darken up these areas here along the edge of the eye. I'm going to use the pencil blender and just blend up here this section of the eye. Okay, so now we're going to work on this area here. So to me, this area seems tricky, so that's why I've sort of avoided doing it yet. But we're going to go for it. So I'm going to erase some of the graphite lines. And we're going, I think I actually am going to use the H pencil, so we can get some really fine details in first, and then we can darken it. So we want to get those eyelash reflections in first. So these ones are actually the eyelashes, these darker ones, and then we've got the reflection coming down really, really lightly. So just going to add them in. Now I'm going to use my B pencil. Where was that one gone? Okay, and I'm just going to sharpen it so we get a nice dark thin line. Just going to go over those lines. Now while I'm here, I'm just going to tidy up this area and sharpen some lines. Okay, and now I'm going to, so some of the eyelashes you can see are dark, some are light, so I think I am going to go in with the mono eraser to first add in some eyelashes, and then we'll define them by going back in with the pencil then. Just going to make sure I have a nice clean eraser, and we're just going to try and add in some of these lashes now. And always remember to clean your eraser as you go in as well, because you get the buildup of graphite on the end of it, and then it's not going to erase as well. So here we are, and now I'm going to tidy that up. So in some places I've erased a bit of pencil where I shouldn't have, like here. Just going to tidy that up. And now I'm going to go in between those lashes and define them a little. Okay, now I'm going to go in with my H pencil, and I'm going to blend this up here. So they're a lot lighter up here, so I'm using a lighter pencil with a lighter pressure. And I'm also going to use the pencil blender as well, so it gets a nice smooth blend. Now before I go into any details here, I want to sort of get some more drawn in on this section. So I'm going to go in with my B pencil, and I'm just going to shade in this area. And then we will be getting onto more fur texture as well then, which is going to be fun to add in. Now I'm going to use the pencil blender to blend all that out. To try and cover a lot of surface area, ready for us to put our details on then. So I'm going to go back in with my B pencil now, and I'm just going to start to darken up this area and adding in some fur texture. And I'm simply doing this just by flicking my pencil. I'm not doing too much, nothing complicated. So I look at my reference now, and I know there is that sort of darker area there, so that's where I'm focusing at the moment and getting all that different detail in. So what I'm doing is flicking my pencil in different directions and leaving out areas for the highlights. that we can see. And you want to focus on the direction that it's going as well, so it sort of curves up and around as it's going around his eye. Right, I think before I go too far up here, I want to get this bottom area done as well. So I sort of like to work from the inside and then move outwards. I just noticed as well, I need to add in a little bit of detail just in this highlight area here, because I think I've left it just white and I don't want that. But looking at it, I think this needs to come up a touch higher, so I'm just going to add that in. And it is, I'm just going to get my H pencil, a teeny tiny tree, so just there, and I'm going to get that in. There you go, and then it's just a little shadow there. And then some more shadowing down here, sorry, up here. It's not completely white. Just gonna add some darker tones in this tree here. Okay, actually I think I'm going to blend that out because that's annoying me, this area here. I'm going to get my my half B pencil, and I'm just going to blend this area out. I'm not going to add in the detail yet, I want to add in the detail on this section at the end. But it's just annoying me that I know this area needs to be blended out a lot more. There we go. So now I want to work on this area down here. I'm first going to use the blender very, very lightly. As it is very light down here. And there is some nice fur texture that I would like to get in. So I know this part here is almost white, so I'm just going to go underneath it. So I know that's the shadow underneath the eye. That may be a touch too dark, but we'll see. I love these blending stamps for just sort of mapping out areas. I used to draw graphite portraits without any blending stamps and they would take forever, and I'd always end up with lots of harsh lines as well, never knowing how to get rid of them. I'd try and use my finger to try and sort of smudge them, and then everything would just get like murky and wouldn't be nice. So when I learned about these pencil stamps, graphite changed for me, and now I love graphite. Blend up here too, because I know that's a darker area up there. So just very quickly mapping in my tonal values, very, very roughly. And now this is very, very light. So he's bay, and his eye area is sort of nice and dark, and then he's very light on his cheek area. There you go. it looks very messy at the moment, but it is all going to come together, so I'm going to have a break and I will be back to carry on. Okay, I'm back. Let's carry on. So we're going to work on this lower area here. So I'm going to go in with my half B pencil first. And now I want to sort of capture all of the texture. So I'm going to use this half B pencil and sort of map in the darkest tones. Just sort of adding in shapes now. Okay, now I've added a little more texture there. I've noticed this area here needs to be a lot darker, so I'm going to go in with my B pencil and I'm just going to darken this section now. There you go, and I'm going to go back in with my HB pencil and continue adding in all this texture down here. So this is where he has light fur, but then he has little specks of dark colour coming over the top. So it's like a sort of like a yellowy ochre colour, and then he has darker brown hair flecks in his coat. Now while I'm here at this area, I'm just going to darken that little whisker there. I don't want to press too hard because I don't want a thick line. I want a nice thin dark line. So I'm just going to go over the top and darken it a touch. And do this one as well. I think I might go over them with a harder pencil later on in the portrait. And I'm just going to keep focusing on where the lights and darks are with my HB pencil and add in all the texture that I can see. And all I'm doing is just flicking my pencil in different directions. I'm using very short strokes as well, because we can see that the fur is very, very short. It's very light, delicate fur around his eye. What I'm going to do is erase this line here so that we have a nice seamless blend there. And I'm going to use the mono eraser to do that. Just going to make sure it's clean. And then use my pencil blender. And then I'm going to do the same and blend out this section. And then what we'll do is add the details on over the top. And I'm also blending in the direction of the fur as well. I'm going to remove these pencil lines. So this is where it gets darker here. So I am going to use a pencil. I think I'm going to go with the B. And I'm going to add in some fur texture, and then I'll use that to blend the rest then. So I'm just flicking my pencil, making sure I'm going in the correct direction that the fur is. And I can add this whisker back in afterwards, that's no problem. Now I'm going to use the pencil blender again, and this will soften these lines, plus add in some more tone. And then we can blend this darker area out into the lighter area then. So it's just added more graphite to the page for me to be able to blend a bit more and add just a touch more texture. And when you're using these pencil stumps to blend as well, you want to make sure that you're using the same pressure throughout, because if you start using hard pressure and then lighter pressure, you're going to get an uneven blend. You want to keep the same pressure so that the blend is all the same tone. Just going to blend up the rest of the page here. So if I use harder pressure here, look, because it is darker there, you get more of a darker tone, and then the lighter pressure, you get a lighter tone, just like when you use the pencils. I'm just going to add a bit where there is some darker toned fur. And now I'm going to go back in with I think I'm going to use the HB pencil and add in some more of the fur texture. I think I may go in with the H pencil as well, just to get some nice harder lines, because when you're trying to get detail in with the softer pencils, it comes out darker, but it also comes out not as fine. So I may do that. I'm going to add some of this in just to blend it out again. And then go in with my H pencil to add in some nice fine lines. And I'm going to use this all over as well to get in all that fur texture. I'm going to pay attention to where the lighter tones are, and where it's lighter, my first strokes are going to be more sporadic, and then where it's darker, I'm going to put my strokes closer together then. So I start up here and I'm following the direction of the fur. Now I'm going to soften that area with the pencil blender, just so it's not too harsh. And then I'm going to continue going. Okay, now I'm going in with a little bit of a harder pressure to try and get some of these darker tones in. So he's got darker coat coming down here, so I'm going to add that in. Okay, now I do need to get a little more detail in here, but I want to start working up here. I like to give myself a break sometimes and work on different areas and then go back. So we're going to go up here, so I'm going to start mapping out the darker tones that I can see. So I'm going to go in with my B pencil first, and now I'm just going to start adding in some texture. I'm going to try and be light with this hand as well because it's pressing and I don't want to smudge too much. Ideally I should have started from left to right, but I like to make things awkward for myself apparently. I'm going to go in with a harder pencil. I'm going to go in with my HB. Now where I can see the darker tones, I am going to use harder pressure and keep my strokes closer together. And then where it's lighter, I'm going to lighten my pressure and keep my strokes further apart from each other. So you can see with my lines, I'm sort of crossing them a little and making them go in slightly different direction because they're not all uniformed and sleek. Just going to get my pencil blender and soften all this area out now. I'm going to go in with my Tombow eraser again now and pick out some highlights. I'm going to use the exact same techniques I did with the pencil, and I'm just going to flick the eraser in, and it just helps to get a little more texture and depth in the fur. This time as well I'm going to do the opposite, so where it's lighter I'm going to use more of a pressure and keep them close together, but where it's darker it'll be less pressure and keep the strokes more sporadic. And I'm just going to go back in with the HB and just add in a few strokes here and there. So it's all about lightening and darkening until you get it looking just how you want it. There you go, and now I'm going to do the same around here. So I'm going to start adding in this darker area here and around there, and I'm going to time-lapse this whole area because it is the same process as all of this, and this video is going to be super long if I do all of this in real time. So off we go. So I'm just going to explain my process a little bit here because it is maybe slightly different for complete beginners. You may be wondering what I'm doing. So I am going in with my darker 4B pencil, and all I'm trying to do at the moment is get lots of graphite on the page. So you can see I'm being quite like scribbly, I suppose, with the pencil. I'm using it really lightly. I just want to get a good layer of graphite on the page, get a nice dark base, and then I'm going to go in with a little more detail then. But this area is very dark, so it's just going to take me a bit to get some layer of graphite down that is nice and dark. So now I've got a nice base down, I'm going to go back in with my 4B pencil and start adding in some details. Okay, so now I've got a little more of the base down, and go do the same thing with my mono eraser again and add in some highlights, and then I'll go back in and add in some shadows, and I'll just keep repeating that process until it's looking exactly how I want it to. So in with the mono eraser and just add in a bit of texture. So now I'm going to go back in again and add some more detail. I'm going to go in with the B pencil so I can get some harder lines in. Okay, down here as well, some of his mane is coming in. So this is like one of my favourite things to do. Again, I'm going to use the mono eraser and I'm going to add in those strands of forelock that are coming down. Now it's really starting to look like Cookie because he had a very messy mane, messy forelock all the time. It was always got everywhere. It was so bushy. Okay, now I'm going to go on to this section here, and I'm going to use my HB pencil first, and I'm just going to add in some texture. Okay, just added sort of basic details there, and I'm going to blend out this area now. So again, using the pencil blender, stump thingamabob. There we go, and now I'm going to carry on adding in the fur texture coming down here. Okay, so now I'm going to go into this area here and darken it up because it needs a lot more darker tones in there. So I'm going to use my 4B and really push my values now. Now I'm going to go in with the mono eraser and add in some highlights again. So we are nearly finished with him. What I'm going to do now is have a quick break to adjust my eyes. I think we are going to edit this area a little bit, just push my values and blend it a little more. But like I said, I'm going to let my eyes rest so that when I come back I got fresh eyes and I can see exactly what needs to be done. Okay, so I've had a good break and come back, and now with fresh eyes I can see I do need to make some of my values a lot darker around here and a little more around here. And then again, like I said before I had my break, I just need to tidy up this area as well. So I'm going to do that first and give myself more of a break from here. So I'm going to go in with my B pencil first, and I'm just going to blend some more areas and darken up some more. You can also see a little more detail now. I think earlier when I was filming, the sun was out quite bright and I couldn't see the reference as well. And now the sun has gone, I can see more details, which is strange. I need to be aware of that when I'm working on commissions. I'm going to use my mono eraser and add in just a bit of highlight into the pupil here. And now I'm going to use my my HB pencil, and I'm going to use this to really blend all these sections a little more into the page. You don't see much of the tuss of the paper then. So up in this area here, I can see it needs to be a lot darker, so I'm just going to do that now. And I'm leaving in this white eyelash here because Cookie always had random white eyelashes and hairs here and there. So I want to leave that in because it's very him. I'm going to go in with my B pencil and darken up this area again. And I'm just going to go around the rest of the portrait and darken up the areas that I can see needs to be a lot darker. Okay, now I'm going to go back in again with my mono eraser and push some more highlights. There we go, I think I am pretty happy with that. And now the very, very last stage, another one of my favourite ones, we're going to use the white gel pen to add in the extra white highlight, so to really push the values and contrast of the portrait then. So this is the gel pen that I like to use. This is the Jelly Roll. I'm just going to give it a good shake first. And now we are going to go in and add it on the very lightest parts that I want to enhance. I'm only going to use a tiny amount, just little dots, just here. So with the gel pen you can get more of a precise line, unlike with the eraser, which is less precise. There we go, and now just going to blend here. You can see it needs to be a little blended where my hand has been. I think I might add in few little darker hairs along here, and then I'm gonna have to leave it because I know I'll be here all evening adding and adjusting, and this video will be so long in the end. I need to learn to be more just leave it when it's finished instead of playing with it for ages. I find it very hard to call a portrait complete sometimes. I'm just going to add in a few little bits with my H pencil down here, just because there are some darker hairs. Really, I shouldn't pay too much detail. Pay too much attention to detail around here, because I want the main focus to be on the eye. So it's okay if here isn't as detailed, but I find it hard not to add it all in. I'm also going to add a little bit of the gel pen up here as well, because there are some bright highlights that I just want to get in there. I remember when I was working on this piece working on this section to remember to add some of the gel pen to these brighter areas. There we go. I'm going to leave it now so I don't overdo it. But there we are, I think he is finished. So I'm going to lay this table down now so we can do the very satisfying job of removing this tape and seeing our nice clean borders. Okay, so let's remove the tape. So this is the Scotch Magic tape, so it doesn't rip the page at all. Look how nice, clean and satisfying that is. And there we go, he is finished. Here's the portrait all mounted up now. I'm just going to zoom in so you can see some details. So these pencils were beautiful to use. They laid down really well, they blended really well, they sharpened really well. There was no breakage, nothing. There was no grittiness of the graphite. I used Fabriano watercolour paper as my paper of choice for these pencils, and they worked really well together. So I'm very pleased, and I will definitely be using these pencils again, and I would definitely recommend them. All in all, I am really happy with these pencils. They are lovely to work with. I would definitely recommend. I love how they come in the little hard case. I'm going to pop a link below in the description if you would like to purchase these. If you enjoyed this tutorial and would like to see some more, I have some full in-depth tutorials in colour pencil over on my website where I take you through absolutely everything I do from start to finish so you can create your own full drawing. You can also check out some more of my videos here, and I will see you again soon. Bye!